Hello everyone and welcome back to the good stuff, and of course happy birthday Paul. I know your birthday was yesterday, but I did not release any videos yesterday, so sorry about that. Now getting back to the match, it's still the 1921 World Chess Championship match between Emanuel Lasker and Raul Capablanca. This is game 8. I decided to skip game 7 because Capablanca didn't really try anything with the white piece. It was a very short game and a quick draw, but I will put a link to it in the description below, so if you want to just check out the moves to game 7, just a few quick, easy trades, and then they agreed to a draw. But the first link in the description below will take you to game 7 if you want to check that out. Now, getting to game 8, Lasker still down a point in the match, and he now has the white pieces. So let's see how this works out for both of them. Lasker, with the white pieces, opens with d4. We have d5, knight to f3, knight to f6. Sorry about that. And here we don't have the Queen's Gambit decline, but rather c4 and c6, so the Slav defense. And here Lasker goes for e3, and here Capablanca says that this is one of the rare lines where black doesn't have any issues developing the light square bishop, which is more often than not a problem in such lines. So bishop to f5 before closing up this cage with e6. We have knight to c3 and now e6. So as you can see, the bishop is now freely developed, controlling this very nice diagonal, and it's a much better position than, for example, if this bishop was inside of this cage, for example, on d7 or here. And if you want to develop it via fianchetto, then you have to play b6, bishop b7, move the knight, move the rook, play c5 at some point to release the bishop. So this is an optimal setup for black, and black has to be very happy about this. Bishop to d3, and here Capablanca more than happily trades it. Bishop captures, we have queen captures, and now, as you can see, Capablanca has his pawns on light squares. He has a dark square bishop, which can roam around freely, on the dark squares, so it's a nice position, and he has a good bishop. We have knight b to d7 now by Capablanca, and Lasker, sorry about that, castles. And bishop to d6, just putting the bishop on this very nice diagonal. And e4 now. Here Lasker is threatening e5. He wants to win material here. So Capablanca trades. We have pawn captures, knight captures, queen captures, and here Capablanca castles. Probably also possible is just knight f6, kicking the queen away and then castling, but Capablanca has a different idea. He wants to leave the f6 square open for his queen. So here Capablanca castles with bishop to d2, and now Lasker wants to bring his bishop over to c3 to control this very nice diagonal, and now queen to f6. Capablanca is preparing queen to g6. And like I said, he's still up a point in the match. He wants to trade queens here, and he just wants to take it easy. If Lasker wants to push for a point, then Capablanca will get his opportunity to maybe take a 2-point lead in the match, maybe. So rook ad1. Getting the rook to a nice d-file as the bishop is coming to c3, and perhaps the position can open up, and now queen to g6. Capablanca offers a queen trade. And now you could avoid the queen trade, but then maybe queen to c2 can be annoying. It's not like you will capture on b2 because rook b1 can be annoying, as then white also will get some counterplay, but still Lasker doesn't want to do anything crazy. We have queen captures on g6, now capturing towards the center, a very principled reply by Capablanca. H captures on g6 and bishop to c3 now, just putting the bishop to a much more useful square. We have rook f to d8 and rook fe1. And bishop to c7. Now Capablanca wants to get rid of all of the pieces from the d-file, so his rook has nice control over the d-file. King to f1, Lasker improves the position of his king, and now knight to f8. You might think about why not knight f6, but what is the knight doing on f6? And if you have some other ideas, maybe you want to play f5, create a nice outpost for the knight on f6. That is a good plan, but there's no way to actually execute it because, well, the e6 pawn is weak, so f5 is not an option. But Capablanca finds a way how to improve his position. So first, knight to f8, and here Capablanca says that a student of the game should really study the movements of the knight here. So if you consider yourself a student of the game, you should study how the knight moves in this game. Bishop back to d2 by Lasker. Now Capablanca wants to play f6, get the king over into the game via king to f7, and then strengthen the center. And the knight from f8 is nicely guarding this pawn here. So we have f6 by Capablanca, and now h4. Lasker doesn't want to meet the g5 and g4. We have king to f7. Now the king is once again defending the e6 pawn. So first... part of the plan has been achieved. Now the knight can return and then choose a different square. We have g3 by Lasker, and now knight back to d7. So the knight did everything it needed on f8. So here Capablanca's plan is to get the knight over to b6 to c8 and then over to e7. And from e7, which will be the second part of Capablanca's plan, he wants to get it to d5. But that's the third part of the plan, where Capablanca first has to figure out how to create an outpost for his knight on d5. Lasker goes bishop to e3, and now comes knight to b6. Capablanca still, with the maneuvering. With rook to c1, not interested in b3. Once you push a pawn, you can never unpush it, so why, better not do anything rash. Rook to c1, and now knight to c8. And here, rook to e2 by Lasker. Improving the position. And here Capablanca plays knight to e7. And finally, this knight really did a lot. It came to from d7 to f8, then back to d7 to b6 to c8 to e7. And like I said, now Capablanca wants to get it on d5, which is an excellent outpost, but the problem is the c4 pawn guards the d5 square. So Capablanca's idea is he wants to play a6, rook b8, he wants to push b5, attack the c4 pawn, and then maybe create an outpost for his knight on d5. And Capablanca also says about his position here that the position is unassailable. Now, I had no idea what unassailable means, so I had to Google it. So for those of you who don't know what unassailable means, it means unable to be attacked, questioned, or defeated. So here Capablanca says about his position that there's no way for white to push for anything here. Now, that's a really nice word, and I'm probably going to use it a lot of times in my future videos, so I do hope you enjoyed that as well. Unassailable. Now, Lasker goes rook to c3, and here we have a6. Capablanca is now ready to push b5 and attack the c4 pawn, which defends the d5 square. Lasker prevents it with a4, and now rook 8 to b8. Again, Capablanca is preparing b5. So we have b4 by Lasker. Here he is ready to capture and give up the d5 square, but he wants to push a5 and create a pass pawn for himself. So Capablanca goes for it with b5. C captures on b5 with a captures on b5, and now Lasker pushes a5. So Capablanca is pushing a little bit, but the end result is that Lasker gets a passed a pawn for himself. But on the other hand, the d5 square is now freed for Capablanca's knight. Bishop to d6 first, threatening to win the b4 pawn, and here the rook has to move from here to b3 to defend it. Because if you play something like rook to b2, then the knight comes to d5 with a double attack against the pawn and on the rook, and now you can go into some rook captures on c6, bishop captures on b4 ideas, but it's black who's really... It's not that black is better or anything, but Lasker just doesn't want to allow Capablanca to dictate the tone of the battle here. So, rook to b3, and now comes knight to d5, again with a double attack against the pawn here, and bishop to d2. Just nicely controlling all of the squares the knight can go to, and also a double defense to the b4 pawn. We have rook d to c8 by Capablanca, and here in this position the game was adjourned, and incredibly when the game continued on move 30, it was in this position that Capablanca and Lasker agreed to a draw. Because after they've analyzed the position carefully for quite some time, they decided that there was no way to push for the win. Because if you check out the position, okay, Lasker does have a pass pawn, but it's very hard to push it. One such example will be because, for example, this rook and bishop are stuck guarding the b4 pawn. You cannot move them, otherwise you're going to lose that. So you could try something like rook e1 to maybe get the rook over to a1 and start pushing your pass pawn, but still it really does nothing. For example, if you go, let's say, rook e8, just getting the rook over here, there's no way to do it. Or if you try something like rook to e8, preparing maybe e5 if white decides to move the rook from the e file, which also white shouldn't do. White should really keep an eye on this. square here because there aren't a lot of breakthroughs in the position. e5 is one of the breakthroughs in the position, and white really shouldn't allow it. But still, you could go rook to a1, and now you will never be able to push a6, because once you push a6, rook a8 is coming, rook a7, the other rook is coming over here, and you will lose the a pawn, because white will still not be able to defend it, as this rook is stuck guarding the b4 pawn. So it's really not possible. So although white does control more space here, white should be better here. Lasker decides it's better to live and fight another day than to overpush something and be down 2 points in the match. And Capablanca is happy with his lead in the match so far, so he agrees to a draw. Which is very nice. So I decided to show game 8, even though there wasn't a lot of fight going on, but there was a fight, and especially the knight maneuvering was very nice, and also unassailable. I'm very happy to have learned that word. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Game 8 of the 1921 World Chess Championship match between Emanuel Lasker and Jose Raul Capablanca. I would like to thank Jeff Graves, Fabian Wick, Dame Pletvarec, Konstantinos Kafetsopoulos, and Alexander Van Os for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing, the Capablanca saga, and of course checking up on your suggestions. And if you remember, I mentioned that you're welcome to send me emails regarding the I will be reviewing other chess channels. I don't know, I thought I was pretty clear, but I thought if you are the owner of the channel, because I don't know if I will be able to review someone's channel without their approval or without their permission. If I show some of the content from their channel, they might copyright strike me. So you're welcome to suggest channels for me to review, but I will only be able to mention them if you are not the owner of the channel, as I do not have permission to use any of the content from there to make a nice review. That's pretty much everything I wanted to say. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.